Alright guys, I'm going to show you guys how to use the editing program. We get a lot of questions for it. Even some of our editors don't know how to use it. And it is really hard to explain to people how to use it because there's just so much that goes into it. And sometimes when you're looking at the program, it's pretty confusing because there's just so many numbers and everything is white. And it's just, I don't know, sometimes it gets really confusing. So there probably is alternative ways to do this, but this is how I do it, and it works every single time. So, if I was you, this is the way I would do it. First things first, I got my roster file right here on my desktop, and before I can do anything, I gotta open brute force, and you wait for this little pop-up thing. Just click the X, close out of it. Now it has my file here, but I always click this button right here and go to my desktop because that's where my file is. Click on my file, click OK. I always do that. Now if you notice down here, there ain't anything here yet, so what I always do is I click on this one and then it brings up all this stuff, and you come down here to decrypt PFD, decrypt all files, yes, minimize. Now come back up here to your roster file, go to the user data one, the very bottom, right click, rename, click at the end of the A, put a period, and then capital MC02, and then just click off it. That renames the file, and you'll see now it says a MC2 or MC02 file, which is what you just typed in at the end of it. Alright, close out of that. And I never close out of this brute force. I always leave it open. I just minimize it. I don't know if it really matters, but I just always do it that way. Now, depending on which editor you're going to use, I'm going to go with the EADB editor because it's just easier to use, and I only use the other one for setting playbooks and stuff. Double click this, click file. Then you got to click load config. And if I was you guys and you're going to do this a lot, I would put this folder on your desktop someplace because it puts it like in your program folders, and sometimes it's kind of hard to find. So here it is, my EADB config files. I got Dynasty and roster. If you're doing stuff in Dynasty, then obviously you click on the Dynasty config and it brings up different stuff. But since we're doing rosters, we're going to click on the roster config. And you see how it brings up like, teams to where it's like more roster oriented instead of Dynasty. Alright, now we're going to click file, open, and go back to my desktop again because that's where my roster file is. There's my roster file, double click that, and you'll see my file right there where I changed it to MC02. Now if I don't change that to MC02, it's not going to work. I don't even think it shows up when you go to open it. So it has to be changed to MC02, and I would recommend doing it before you open the EADB editor because sometimes I notice that it will cause it to corrupt your file. Alright, we got it open. And now, for any of you that have never seen it, you can see how it gets real confusing because there is just, stuff everywhere. And this is just one tab. It just goes on and on and on and on. And if you don't know what you're doing or what you're looking for, it can get really confusing. Now, when you're working on a team, this is the first thing that I always do. I click on the filter button. I go to add. And then you double click that and it'll bring up this little list. I go to team ID. Come over here to value, double click that, click the drop down arrow, and you'll see all these teams. And I'm going to click on the greatest team on earth, obviously, Michigan. Alright, now this is an older file. What I normally do is just like this, click the overall button. You see it gives you the lowest player. Click it one more time, gives you the highest. Then I click position. And now it has all my players in their position with the highest player on top. just like you would see it on the game when you're going through the rosters. Now, what's next? We're gonna set some team captains and impact players. So you go to the teams tab, not the players tab. Go over one to the teams tab. You'll see it's got all your team's names. And we'll come down here to Michigan. You just gotta scroll to the right here. And now you see your impact players. Player 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now to find the captains, you got to go a little further right, and Bikes is absolutely awesome for figuring this out, because I cannot tell you how many hours of my life I wasted doing this manually. It is absolutely terrible. Alright, so I guess if you want to look for stuff, like I said, it gets confusing when you get by the team end zone 1 and 2 and start getting into this stuff. This is the stuff we're looking for. Here's my O cap and my D cap. So this is your offensive captain, your defensive captain. Now what I do is drag it this way. I wish I knew how to make a separate config file so I could just put all this stuff on here. I think I'm going to ask Pin from Operation Sports if he knows how to do it, because man, it would make my job so much faster. I just keep dragging these over. Well, I guess if it wants to drag over. Alright. Now, I drag them like this. And I put my offensive captain first, my defensive captain second. Now say we're going to go back. Alright. We're going to go back to the roster. Let's say that John O'Corn was the captain, which is never going to happen. Right here is his captain number, not this number. So you go with the one right here, 3587. If I wanted him to be my offensive captain, I would type in the 3587 right there. If you look at this, my defensive captain is a 3611, which is Mike McCray. So those numbers right there correlate with this right here. Now, if you want to go a little further, we'll go all the way to the far right. And where is it at? I'm not seeing it. I don't know. I can't find it. Is it under the players tab? Yep. Okay. So we go to the far right in the players tab. And you see right here it says redshirt. What I do with this is I drag it all the way to the left, because I mean, I just don't like guessing, going back and forth. Man, and now you see why editor gets so confusing. It's just so easy to lose stuff on this. Drag this to the right. Ah, I grabbed the wrong one. Or didn't I? Man. Oh, there we go. Here's my red shirt tag. It's a long ways, man. Gotta drag it over. Drag it over. I mean, I guess you don't have to do this, but I always do it because I don't want to red shirt tag the wrong person. So, here we go. Get it over by the players' names. Alright, now, the way this works, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. You see it says none and used and current. If you want to redshirt a player, you click on current, and then that will redshirt that guy. And when you go back to the game, you'll see it where he has the little redshirt tag by his name. Let's see, what's this? Fixing bodies. This is, man. To me, how you set it up in the game is what affects this the most. But, I mean, for the most part, this is how it works. You see, you got your arm definition, arm size, chest size. So this is what you do. When you're editing a player, you'll see like it'll say like 6'4" right here for his chest size. So then I make them match pretty much all the way across because, I mean, it just makes their bodies look a lot better. The only one I don't really mess with is the feet because I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what to set that. And I go through in the game before I do any of this and set them like anybody that's 180 pounds to 190 pounds is like a 30. And like their arm size and all that stuff. Anybody who's 170 pounds is like, I think a 20, something like that. And when you change those numbers in the game, it changes these numbers in editor. So say if I could just tell you by looking at this, if he's on 190 pounds, he's a 30 probably on the game. He's either a 30. Yeah, he's a 30. So it comes up like this with the 8383. And basically all you just got to do is make these numbers match. I mean, there's not too much to it. Now if we want to do helmets and face mask, this is how you know, right here is your standard helmet. Double click over here and you can put the Ion 2 bar on a standard helmet, or you double click here and we go to the Ion 4D and we can put the normal 2 bar face mask on that helmet. Whatever, you know, setup you want to go with, you just change it right here. Makes it pretty simple. Doesn't take a lot of time, but you got to be careful when you go back in the game, because when you go back in the game, when you click on your players and you've changed their helmets and face masks, they reset really easy, like really easy. So you got to kind of watch it when you're going through teams that have been edited like that, because they'll automatically reset and then you'll have to come all the way back to editor to fix that. Now the one thing that I do is right here, the faces. Faces are so important to me. I cannot stand seeing an offensive lineman with a tiny head or a skill player with a gigantic lineman head. Once again, I just drag everything to the left and put it over here by their name. And the cool part about this program, the EADB editor, which is different from the other one, is when you double click their face, it comes up with this little dude right here. And you can actually see a picture of their face. And if you click on it like that, and then bring your mouse down here while it's still highlighted, you can actually scroll down as long as it's over this white box, and it'll change their faces so you can see it, and it makes it a lot easier to find the right face. So see how I went down a little further and started moving the screen, but say this is the face we want to go with. You see right now it says face 32, light 18. I click off. Now it's face 20, light 6. Pretty simple. It can be quite time consuming when you do 69 players, but I think it really helps out a lot. Now, one of the hardest things, and nobody ever really can figure out, is this right here. We're going to export this old roster to Vikes new file. So we go up here, right here, click, and we're going to go to export, and we're going to go to all visible. Now when you do this, you got to make sure that you filter to the team that you're going to export. So you see this is just the Michigan team all by themselves. Come up here, export, Oh my lord. Export all visible. Now you come down here to this drop down and you go down, 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 down till you find player ID. Once that comes up, I just click this little red X. It brings this up, and once again, I put it on my desktop. Name it whatever you want. Save it. Now you gotta close out of this. Okay, and you'll see it puts the CSV file right there on my desktop. So now, since I'm importing this, I don't really need the other file, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyways. Alright, we're going to put this file back as if we're going to put it on the game. Click on your roster file. Right click down here. Click rename where you renamed it before. Erase the MCO2 and the period. Once you get that off, just click off. Yes. Close out of that. Go back to brute force. Make sure you click on this. And then we're going to go to encrypt all files. Right there in the middle. And then yes. And then we're going to close brute force. And now if we wanted to, we could drag that onto our scan disk and put it on the game and use it as our active file. I'm going to delete it though, because I'm going to show you guys how to finish the import. I have another file right here in my downloads, a newer one from Vikes. Put it on my desktop. Once again, go to brute force. Close that. Make sure I always refresh this. I always go right here. Click on the file again. Click OK. Make sure you click up here. Decrypt PFD. Decrypt all files. Yes. Minimize. Come up to my roster file. Double click. Go to the user data file at the bottom. Rename. .mc02. Capital MC02. Close out of that. Now we're going to go back to EADB editor. Click file. Load config. Here's my EADB editor configs. Go to roster. Now click open. And here's my roster file. Double click that. Now if you remember, the file that we were looking at previously, it has John O'Corn and people like that on Michigan, and then the new file, they're not there. So once this loads, I'll show you, and the way you can confirm your import is basically you just look for a player that wasn't on the team when you did the overwrite process. Now they are. So we're going to go to filter, click add, double click this, drop down, team ID, double click this, drop down, and we go to Michigan right there. Click off it. You want to click off it right there in the middle like I just did. Then click the X. It'll automatically take us to Michigan. I filter through. Okay, now you see my quarterbacks: Milton, McCaffrey, Peters, Patterson. Now we come back up here and click this, and we're going to go to import, and then we're going to go to overwrite existing, the one in the middle. Click that, and now we're going to go back to our desktop where we had the CSV file right there. Now you'll watch right here: Patterson, Peters, McCaffrey. Let's go back to our quarterbacks, and now we got Spate, O'Corn, Peters, and McCaffrey. So it worked. So if we're going to save this, we click File, Save, Done. I always save it like 2 or 3 times just to be sure, and then close out of it. I would normally go back, but I want to show you guys how to do the defensive playbook. So double click the other Dynasty editor. I don't even know if I've looked to do it in the other one. It's just easier for me to do it on this one. Click open. There is no config file for this program. Double click here, it'll load up the roster file, and you've already renamed it as an MCO2 file, so you don't got to do anything with that. Now, in order to do this, I have the scale right here. So these are the playbook numbers you see right here, 0 to 6. Now, if I want to switch this, I got to go over to the Teams tab. And you just go a little bit to the right here, and you'll see Defensive Playbook. I drag that over to the team name, filter the team name, and now let's say we want to change Air Force to a 4-3 defense, a normal 4-3 defense. Click on here, 4-3 defense, numbers is 0. So right here where it says Defensive Playbook, I change that 5 to a 0. That's all you gotta do. Click File, Save, done. Close it, close that. Now we gotta come back to our roster file, double click it, right click, rename, backspace, click off, yes, come back to brute force, click that, encrypt all, files, yes, close that, and now you plug your scan disk in. I already showed you guys how to do the offline file transfer. You plug your scan disk in, and well, I guess I'll just show you how to do it. That way we can get it out of the way. Alright, I'm going to plug my scan disk in. Here it pops up. Go to my save data folder, and you see I have 2 different saves here. I'm going to highlight them, right click, delete all, and now I'm going to click on this one and drag it in here, and I am good to go. Close that and eject my scan disk, and that is pretty much it. I mean, that's quite a few steps right there. I guess I can put more on here as we go, but that gives you guys a gist of how it goes. And I'm not sure, but I'm almost positive that you have to assign a you have to assign a player ID in order to rewrite save files. And what I mean by that is right here you see my profile on brute force, and it has my gamer tag. And if you look behind it, you see this number right here, this 7709, all that stuff. That was my original number. I had to change it. There is a video on YouTube, but I'm not for sure if you have to do it anymore. If you do, I guess I could put that video on here. But I mean, that's pretty much everything that you guys are going to need to start with. I'm going to get off here. You guys have a good night, and I hope you enjoyed the video.